Welcome to week 5. Bye weeks are here. Winter is coming. Injuries are among us. It's tough out in the fantasy football streets, but I am here to help you out. If you want to win your league, you need to first subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But number 2, make sure you're grinding the waiver wire each and every single week, because that's how you're going to win your league. Without further ado, let's go ahead, kick it off with my favorite guy of the entire week, Mr. Woody Marks. I told you to add him these last 2 weeks. It's Texans rookie running back. This is the last time this season where you'll see him on waivers. He needs to be rostered absolutely everywhere. He had a monster performance in week 4. His head coach, D'Amico Ryans, said, "We want to see how much more we can actually get him involved after his monster game. He should be a top pickup regardless of position. He's worth spending at least 50% of your fab, if not all of it." And coming in next, I got another rookie running back. I have Bashaw Tootin, Jags running back. If I'm being honest, after Woody Marks, the running backs are pretty grim. So feel free to skip around. But Tootin, at this point, he's a super weak flex, but a very high-end handcuff should Travis Etienne go down to injury at any point during the season. And then third among running backs, I have Kendre Miller. Alvin Kamara is still the lead running back in New Orleans. Don't hear what I'm not saying. But Miller has had an increase in snaps each and every single week. He's been effective with his limited touches. He's a low-end handcuff at a stash at the end of benches, if possible. 4 is Chris Rodriguez. Still part of a 3-headed backfield that's slowly devolving into a 2-headed backfield. I'm curious of what the offense looks like with Jaden Daniels. You have wonderful matches coming up for the Commanders running backs. In week 6, you have the Cowboys, who have given up the 7th most fantasy points to running backs, and then the Bears, who are allowing the 3rd most fantasy points to running backs. And number 5, Kenneth Gainwell. The argument could be made he could be a little higher, but he's going into his bye week. Then he faces the Browns, who are second best against running backs. Plus, Jalen Warren should be healed up and ready back then. If you have a deeper bench, feel free to stash him. In a lot of my leagues, I'm not able to. And then I got a couple of honorable mentions here. Jaden Blue could finally be active if Miles Sanders, who got banged up on Sunday, misses any amount of time. He's a very explosive rookie running back. Blake Corum is already eating into Kyron Williams' workload. Nothing more than a handcuff at this moment. Justice Hill had the ugliest garbage time touchdown in their blowout loss versus the Chiefs. I'm not chasing it, but in deeper PPR leagues, he might be worth a stash. Tajay Spears is eligible to come off of the IR. It doesn't mean he'll play, he's just eligible. Tony Pollard's still the guy in Tennessee, but he's worth a stash in deeper leagues. And also, I'm recording this Monday night after the Monday Night Football games. Josh Jacobs got a little banged up during Sunday Night Football, so Emmanuel Wilson might be worth an ad. It's just something you have to monitor. And on to the wide receivers. Kicking off number 1 spot is Wan'Dale Robinson of the New York Giants. Malik Neighbors, unfortunately, is out for the season. Wan'Dale is one of 3 Giant receiving options I'm going to have on this waiver wire segment, so stay tuned for the rest of the names. He's a full-time player, and he should be getting a lot of the short dink and dunks from Jackson Dart. Coming in at number 2, I have Romeo Doubs. He could be the number 1 wide receiver for waiver wires, but he's going into his bye, so that's something to monitor. He had a huge 3-touchdown performance on Sunday Night Football, and I'm not taking that away from him, but the Cowboys are the easiest matchup for wide receivers. That's why I had Matthew Golden as somebody who'd buy low, and it turns out it was a Romeo Doubs game. That happened. We've seen him have multiple touchdown games in his previous 2 seasons. I'm not chasing it. I'm treating it more like Trey Tucker, last week's waiver wire hero, where you stash him, but you don't necessarily start him. On to number 3, I have Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton should be the one who fills in the Malik Neighbors role. Don't hear what I'm not saying. Nobody can fill in the Malik Neighbors role. But there are some red flags. You have a rookie quarterback, low passing volume, and the last time he was fantasy relevant was week 8 of 2024. Nevertheless, if you prefer him over Wan'Dale, I totally understand it. He should get the high value deep targets. But again, another guy we shouldn't be starting until we see signs of life. Number 4 on my list, I have Jalen Tolbert. He filled in the CeeDee Lamb role where he was primarily playing on the outside, but sometimes going to the slot. George Pickens is the obvious wide receiver to have in Dallas while CeeDee Lamb is out, but Jalen Tolbert was just 1 catch away from having a little over 100 yards. He's flexible in some deep leagues where there's injuries and bye weeks that are coming up. And last but not least, I have Malik Washington. Tyreek Hill dislocated his knee in the Monday Night Football game. Malik Washington should be the biggest benefactor after Jalen Waddle. He has some speed and he's been pretty good in a limited role, but he's always had tough competition ahead of him. He's not playable until we see it, but he's certainly worth the stash. And he's not listed here, but an honorable mention goes out to Adonai Mitchell. He had a really cool play that was going to turn into a touchdown, but he dropped the ball passing the goal line and threw it out of the back of the end zone. If Alec Pierce comes back in the lineup, AD Mitchell is somebody who should be on radars, but probably not on your bench. And if you haven't already, make sure you do subscribe to the channel. I go live every single day to help you out with your fantasy leagues. And then going on to tight ends, I have Brenton Strange as my number 1. He's 9th in targets among all tight ends, and he's 2nd in routes, only behind Brian Thomas Jr. He hasn't found the end zone yet, but with the amount of targets he's getting, it should be coming soon. And at number 2 is a familiar face, Darren Waller. Miami is slowly getting him back into the groove. Miami, as I've already discussed, lost Tyreek Hill. Darren Waller isn't going to exactly fill that role, but 2 touchdowns in his first game back, where he's getting worked back into the offense, that's what I like to see. Given the tight end landscape, you could do worse than Darren Waller. Number 3, I got Tommy Tremble. He played a lot more with Jatavian Sanders sidelined, tied Teddarilla McMillan in targets, and led the Panthers in receptions. Now, if Jatavian Sanders comes back, Tommy Tremble should be off everybody's radar. But the Panthers played the Dolphins, who gave up the 2nd most fantasy points to tight ends, so if he's out, might be worth playing. And then 4th, I have Theo Johnson. I mentioned Johnson in week 4 of my tight end rankings, but it was mainly just a long shot. I remember Jackson Dart targeting the tight end a lot in preseason. Now, with Malik Neighbors out for the season, Theo Johnson has a clearer path for relevance. Jackson Dart only passed the ball 20 times in his first career start, but with that, Johnson had 25% of the targets. That was 3rd among all tight ends in week 4. Johnson could have fantasy relevance all season long, but it's a very small sample size, so just keep that in mind. All right, now going on to quarterbacks, it's going to be my guy, Justin Fields versus the Cowboys. He's only available in about 30% of leagues, but in leagues that he's available, I'm playing him. JJ Zacharyson tweeted out that quarterback starters against the Dallas Cowboys so far this year have ranked quarterback 8, 2, 1, and 4. Now, my quarterback rankings won't be out till later this week, but I can promise you Justin Fields is going to be very, very high. And at number 2, we're going with another mobile rushing quarterback, Jackson Dart versus the Saints. I mentioned him last week in my quarterback rankings video once we figured out that Russell Wilson wouldn't be starting. I said it's a gamble to play Jackson Dart in his first ever NFL start. But it was a gamble I was willing to take instead of starting someone like a Trevor Lawrence or Michael Penix, who we just have seen bad game after bad game. Now he gets to face the Saints, who have given up the 5th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Now with bye weeks here and bad quarterback play happening around the league, I do not mind streaming Jackson Dart in week 5. And coming in at number 3, I have Sam Darnold versus the Bucs. Now this is an absolute break glass in case of emergency. The Bucs have given up the 8th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks, and Darnold shouldn't lose you the week, but shouldn't win you the week either. He's the perfect plug-and-play type of quarterback. Now, let's go on to defenses. My first defense that I have here is the Kansas City Chiefs. They play the Jags. Trevor Lawrence has turned the ball over 4 times in 4 games, and despite the 3-1 record that the Jags have, we haven't seen much life on the Jags side of the ball outside of Travis Etienne. At number 2, I have the London game, Browns versus Vikings. Now, I like the Vikings side a little bit more, but they're not widely available. The Browns are. They're either going to face Carson Wentz or second-year quarterback J.J. McCarthy. Either way, I think you'll be happy. And then at number 3, another Giant makes the waiver wire list. I have the Giants defense versus the Saints. Staying with the theme of lower roster defenses, Spencer Rattler hasn't been turning the ball over, but he hasn't been lighting up scoreboards either. The Saints have scored the 6th fewest points in the entire NFL. That gives me hopes with the Giants defense. There's an honorable mention this week too, Houston Texans versus the Ravens. Now this is strictly if Lamar Jackson does not play. All right, and that's it. That's everybody. Here is your waiver wire ranking priority list. And if you haven't already, make sure you do subscribe to the channel. I go live every single day. I'm here to help you win your league. And I'll see you throughout the week with the rest of the rankings.